play my little intro here. Actually, I guess we should be playing music.
When do I get an intro?
Here's your intro. Blurred up. Got to stop it there. Let me see. We're going to put on the song that Steve made. Because this isn't turned on. Oh, there we go. That's more like it. I am Mike Stidham of Blurred Radio. And I'm here with my good friend, David Jones.
You on, guys?
And we're gonna do some chatting. We've done this is our third time doing this?
This is number 3, yeah. Yeah, I had to go back in time. I like it. I mean, when I was walking out the door today, my wife was like, who are you doing this podcast with today? I was like, well, Mike, you remember him. Mm-hmm. She's like, oh, yeah, you do this periodically. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're like the only one I do this with on a semi-quarterly basis. Hey,
it is enough.
Yeah. No, it's great, man. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. Yeah. We always have such good conversations.
For sure. I guess to start us off, you met Terrence Howard.
What a jump right to that.
Yeah. I feel like that's the pressing scene of today. That's why we came together. You met. What does Terrence Howard call himself these days?
Terrence Howard?
Because he's so well, yeah. Actor, scientist, physicist, mathematician.
Well, based on the conversations that we've had, he likes to refer to himself not as an actor. He says, I'm David, I'm not an actor. I am a student of life.
Okay.
And I don't think he has a title anymore, though. He just says that I want to move past this patina of being an actor. This isn't what I do anymore. Mm-hmm. And I can really respect that. Like he's in almost like a metamorphosis stage right now. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, no, he's a really cool guy. Super interesting. Yeah. Can you turn the music down just a little bit?
Is it loud in your headphones?
Yeah.
My headphones are generally quiet. See.
It sounds great. All props to who did this one?
Steve.
My guy, Steve.
Oh, yeah. Damn good beat maker, that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, at this point, he's working on a lot of disruptive science, a lot of patented technologies that can really uplift communities and just change the trajectory of mankind. So one of the first conversations that we had was about, do you know what the Kardashev scale is?
Say that again.
The Kardashev scale, not Kardashian.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I had to make sure. What is the Kardashev scale?
Well, the Kardashev scale is a theoretical scale that was actually derived from Star Trek that talks about the technological progression of a society. So starting at, is it stage 1? I believe it's, type 1 rather. So type 1 is a civilization that has control over all of their natural resources and can basically manipulate all of the elements on their planet. Then type 2 is a civilization that has figured out how to manipulate their distant star, their orbital star.
Okay.
So there's a theoretical object called a Dyson sphere, which is basically it's a superstructure that orbits around any star and is able to wirelessly transfer that energy. Yeah. And then type 3 is a civilization that has gained dominion, I believe, over their entire universe, so on and so on and so on.
You skipped a few types.
I did.
Yeah, as a type 6.
Okay. Well, yeah. So,
no, type 5.
So stellar. No, so yeah, type 3 would be planetary, then stellar, galactic, and so on and so on. Yeah.
Ooh, metaverse.
But he wants to do a type 8. That's where he wants to get us to.
To type 8?
To type 8.
I feel like we got a ways to go before we get there. We've been to the moon.
Well, the reason why is because we're limited by our technology.
Okay.
And one of the conversations we had, he calls me, we speak quite a bit, but he called me early one morning, and I was telling him, I was very candid. I'm like, obviously I've been a follower of your work for a very long time, but one of the things that drew me to you was not your acting, but it was something that you said. And I had this thought that has just been stuck in my mind, and it's still stuck in my mind, of how we as a society, we just decided that the electron was going to be the poster child for human development, as opposed to like protons or neutrons or any of the
quarks or any of the subatomic stuff.
Yeah, any of those elements that are capable of massive power generation.
Explain that.
Well, I mean, in the early 1900s, when Edison and all of the other guys, Westinghouse and so forth, did I say 1800s or 1900s? 1800s. Okay.
I don't know what you said.
Whatever. In the 1800s, when the Industrial Revolution really kicked off, and you just had this push for different devices that are powered by steam, and then the light bulb came about, and all these other things. We just decided that we were going to push forward with the electron as the foundational element for our innovation. And it has worked out so far, but there's a lot of other more practical, more powerful things that we could move toward, and that's what we were talking about. So all that to say, when we had this conversation, I said, well, I mean, you've been talking about doing, I guess, moving against the grain of the scientific community and the technological community to do something that would propel us to a type 8 civilization.
Okay.
And I feel the same way, because one of the limiting factors of why it's going to take us this long to become a multi-planet species is because we have to travel in a straight line based upon our technology of using, for instance, combustion engines. I mean, all the answers to the universe they're out there, but we just have to know which questions to ask so we can begin to develop theses and work toward the development of something that will get us from point A to point B technologically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What are Mr. Howard's ideas on that? I've heard in Star Trek there's the folding of reality and creating a wormhole through it and just popping through real fast, which, to put it in the diagram, would look, you'd fold the universe like this and you'd have to jump through this point. They say the wormholes are on a subatomic level unstable. You put anything in there, the whole thing collapses. You probably spiral off to some strange dimension somewhere, or you just split into stardust and die.
Yeah, like spaghettify.
Yeah. Which does not sound pleasant.
No.
Did you ever see the movie? Oh, God. Andre 3000 is in it. The guy from Twilight is in it.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
No. That was Most Def.
Most Def, right. Okay.
Let me look this up real quick. Somebody gets spaghettified in this movie. They send prisoners out to study black holes.
Okay.
Like that's their sentence. You go in the cryo sleep, you wake up, and you have to figure out for the rest of humanity how to manipulate a black hole so that we can travel through it. And Mia Goth is her name. Travels through it, and you just see an explosion of red. Spoiler: the movie
doesn't sound great. Well, I mean, it wouldn't be quite that dramatic. It would actually take a long time to spaghettify, because you have to go past the event horizon, and you would basically just be swirling around, and it's like almost a toilet, and your atoms would separate one by one. Your molecules would separate one by one, but that would take quite a while.
Interesting. And who knows?
Because think about like how long it takes for. I mean, obviously a star is way bigger than a person, but
High Life was the name of that movie.
I've never even heard of it. That sounds like something I need to watch, though. 5.7 rating.
It was a little boring.
Yeah. But I mean, his school of thought is it's storied, so it's not just like one thing. There's a bunch of different patents that he holds. There's I mean, one of the things that we've been talking about a lot is the linchpin, which is a type of drone that is able to make instant changes. Like you can change your direction on a dime, and you can connect them together and make them like super big or small.
An adaptable thinking machine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a drone. It's not a thinking machine. It's just a flying device.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I was able to connect in with the Colombian government. So currently, we're working on bringing that technology to Colombia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why Colombia?
Colombia, I don't know if you know this, but they've recently elected, I believe, their first ever liberal president who wants to expand the scope and scale of everything that happens on a societal level and to bring equal rights to all citizens. So there's been this massive push, for instance, to get people from the Black diaspora into positions of power. So most of the higher positions are held by Black people for the first time ever in South American history. I mean, outside of like, Guyana or something. But anyway, so what he said is he wants to give exclusive rights to the linchpin, which is his drone tech, to Colombia and some other things. He also mentioned an invention that uses beryllium. And I mean, I'm still learning. Like, I'm also very busy, but he tells me about the things that, like, his aspirations and so forth. So I'm still just kind of scratching the surface of what he wants to do and how I can help.
Is he a fast talker?
No, you'd be surprised. He actually is very much like me.
Okay.
Just very thought out, methodical, even keel.
Not one of those people that's like, I got big ideas. Listen, get a pad and paper, write down what you can, and then get mad at you later because you didn't write down the right stuff.
Well, I would imagine this from his words that he's been working on these things for the last 40 years. So he's had time, and he's probably dealt with those same like brain farts of trying to get all of these things out and having these choke points and so forth. And so, yeah, he's not that anymore. He's very down to earth. He's from Chicago, by the way.
I didn't know he was from Chicago.
Yeah. And by the way, he lived in, I think it was Cleveland. Yeah.
That's what I was looking for because I know a friend of mine told me his father knew Terrence Howard somehow. Also, let me throw this out here. Fight Night, fantastic show. That's the most recent show I've seen him in. That's why he was in the one interview he did where there was this big focus on his hair and not so much what he was saying. That was for Fight Night. Okay. He played a great character.
Yeah. He's very much like me. I mean, I think it was even inevitable that we would have met because I'm from Ohio, right?
What part of Ohio?
Toledo.
Did you tell me that before?
Yeah. Well,
let me tell you this. Good thing you got out of Toledo. Shout out to Toledo. I know it's probably, I'm not trying to take anything away from what you do every day, but lots of urban decay in Toledo. But one restaurant that has really cool Green Lantern art on the outside near the Greyhound stop.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely would not have been able to do what I'm doing now if I stayed in Toledo. So, definitely shout out to the hometown, but I moved here when I was 3. So, I mean, I am a Chicagoan, but the point I was making is we've just been on we've been on an intersection where we were eventually going to meet anyway. So, definitely grateful for him.
For sure.
Yeah. And by the way, we're working now to do an online event, like a tech talk where he will go through his series of patents and inventions and kind of talk about his school of thought on where life has taken him, and I'll ask him some questions and kind of moderate the event.
When will that be?
Well, we're talking about next month.
Okay.
So no date has been chiseled in stone yet, but I will definitely let you know.
Nice. I would love to be there.
Yeah, no, I mean you got to be there.
For sure.
Yeah,
For
you
sure.
got to be there.
Where was it been? Half an hour or so? In the 15 minutes we've been talking, I've been writing stuff down to ask. When it comes to the Kardashev scale, what are we on here? We've reached out. I don't think we've reached another planet yet, but we reached the moon.
Yeah, we're not even a type 1 civilization yet.
Yeah. How do we? I heard you say what you feel like is holding us back. Could you talk more about that?
Well, I mean, the technology that we have is based on the electron, and there's only so much that you can do with it, because sure, you can create electricity, and you can create entire systems from that. But in order to traverse the galaxy, you need to be able to move faster than light, which is impossible. So traveling in a straight line is not really feasible. Also, I mentioned that we're stuck using combustion engine technology when something new needs to come along, if we're going to do this within a reasonable span of time. Because there's been all sorts of thoughts that have been thrown out, for instance, to create like a fostered consciousness inside of like a robot body, or like some kind of android or something like that. But regardless, I mean, if they started traveling now, to get to the outer limits of our galaxy, or I'm sorry, of our universe, it would take something like 10 billion years, or 10 million. Insane. Yeah, it's like,
I saw that fact recently. It was like, oh dear Lord.
Yeah. But even to go to like our nearest star, which is, I believe, Alpha Centauri, I mean, it would take many years to do that. With no real promise of actually being able to explore other planets. So I say all that to say, we should start moving toward a new degree of a new elemental foundation for our inventions. And I am not a physicist, so I can't really guide this conversation as of yet. But I mean, there's plenty of things out there that can move us in the right direction. Like, for instance, we haven't really done a whole lot of work with protons, or like, I mean, atomic energy has been used in a very infantile purposes. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's actually there's some things that are like nuclear power and stuff like that, but the periodic table of elements is pretty big.
Yeah.
And we need to get a better grasp on the application of each of these elements, and how we can adapt it to new inventions that will get us closer to becoming an interstellar species.
Where do you think that AI falls into that?
Oh, well, I mean,
as far as like a computing system, a thing that can take our thoughts and extrapolate, pull bigger stuff from them.
So artificial intelligence is incredibly important, because obviously it can do massive amounts of calculations in a short period of time. Quantum computing is also equally important.
How close are we to quantum computing?
We have plenty of quantum computers.
Yeah.
They're not publicly available. There's lots of them out there. But the point I'm getting at is, in order for us to go through the iteration process of understanding where these elements fit in and how they can be used, and even in the creation of new elements, AI would be instrumental in doing that for us.
Have you seen this article about an AI that would take 4 nuclear generators to power it?
I've seen a few of them. I mean, the cost to use AI is high right now.
For sure.
But assuming that we ever get like a room temperature, or like a cold fusion reactor, that would make things a lot simpler. The computational power would stay at a high level with not nearly the same amount of energy demand. I believe that there's one that there's like a new, I guess, data center or quantum center that's coming to Chicago. Did you hear about that? Yeah.
And for people who are going to watch this, define what quantum computing is real fast.
Okay, so in typical computation, you have, and I'm sure everyone's heard of binary. So binary is just basically like ones and zeros. But I believe quantum computing uses 0, 1, 2. So that extra value is able to do things at a much quicker pace. I mean, it's almost difficult to kind of wrap your mind around how things. Well, like, I guess to put it into perspective, we're moving at with current technology, we're moving at like the speed of a, I don't know, like a Volkswagen Beetle or something. And quantum computing would be more like a, what was that rocket car that goes like 700 miles an hour? Yeah. So I mean, exponentially faster. Yeah.
Okay. It almost seems like, and this is my art brain putting this part together. There's a video called "Imagining the 10th Dimension," and it sounds like adding a 2 to quantum computing gives it an extra dimension of like the realm that it is able to think in.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah,
where we are supposed to dream on an astral plane and think on a mental plane, it would think on the astral plane and dream wherever the hell. Hopefully not hell.
Well, I mean, I
think that's what Doom is about.
Doom,
the video game.
Tell me more about that.
Doom, we get this technological link with hell.
Oh yeah, okay.
And of course, it goes wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, just making a point out of that. So if we're able to quantum compute, where do you think that would take us by this time next year?
On what topic? Because quantum computing, I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do with it. So what specifically did you have in mind?
Communication around the world.
I mean, communication is we basically have a bandwidth limitation because we once were using our fingers and now we're using our thumbs. However, I mean, if you look at like what Elon is doing with Neuralink, where he wants to make everything like what's called a brain computer interface or brain machine interface, that would eliminate the need for using your
hands at all,
like any physical input. I was trying to it would basically make you telepathic. So quantum computing, it could be used on a micro scale with this sort of brain chip to get you to a place where you can now communicate vast amounts of things. And if you think about also like how communication works, because you see, like I'm trying to distill down without using too many fancy words what I really want to say, so it is palatable. But quantum computing would make it so when this new technology is available, that you wouldn't have to distill anything. It would just be like a raw flow of consciousness that would then be deciphered within microseconds. So then this exchange would happen. Well, you would basically be able to have like a town hall debate. I'm just trying to think of any kind of scenario. Things that would take a very long time to figure out within a matter of moments.
I'm wondering what the limitations of your average person's thoughts would be. Like on the subject of Elon is a pretty big brain guy. The people who voted for the guy to put Elon in tend not to be the biggest brain folks. So if you said, hey, here's this idea I had, and you tried to transmit it to average Jim, would he have an aneurysm on the spot? Would we turn into scanners? people's heads explode left and right because of the clog of information trying to get through these small thought holes.
Well, I mean, if you think about the mind, the every person's mind has a certain level of neuroplasticity.
Mm-hmm.
So we are destined to evolve into something greater than our current selves.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, even if you think about it this way, like we have basically 4 limbs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you attached a 5th limb or even an 8th limb,
Mm-hmm.
and you had like a brain machine interface, it would eventually learn how to use those 8 limbs.
Mm-hmm.
So I say all that to say the stream of consciousness and like the abstract concept of thought is it runs along that same sort of parallel where sure you may watch football and just be very average thinking, but
not to hate on anybody that watches either type of football in the world, American or
I don't know why I said that. I don't know why I even said football, but I mean just any sort of basic like
I graduated high school and I stopped thinking after that. I started the family, my development ended.
So anything that's like on a higher cognitive level, I mean it would take time to get used to anything that's been integrated into your body, but the idea that the brain is constantly, well, the entire body down to on a cellular level are constantly evolving and renewing themselves and so forth. It begs to question like when we as a society would be ready for this higher level of cognition. And this would be like some kind of like a tertiary level, so like a 3rd level basically. But I think that's the whole point of this machine in the first place is to bridge that gap.
I don't know. I question whether, and there are so many examples popping into my head. A biblically accurate angel. If somebody gives you an idea and it comes to you as an image, it's going to scare the shit out of you. If somebody says, here's what world peace looks like, that may drive somebody to murder somebody because they don't understand the intricacies there. If you can only think in your words, if you can only see in what you know how to see and what you have seen, how does that work on the level of ideas being transmitted back and forth?
Well, that would be the point of having quantum computing, because it would do that for you very quickly.
Okay.
So I mean, like your mind is it has limitations, and if you supercharge it, then that supercharger would look like opening that tiny trickle into a massive waterfall.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. No, we shall see. What else do I got written down here? Why Colombia?
Well, I was.
Now,
go ahead.
Just so I don't ask a question that you already answered. We talked about the structuring of the Colombian government and the aims of the new leader. I meant to look up the name of.
His name is Gustavo Petro. And by the way, I invited you to the event that we threw for him. This was back in September. I threw. He was here in Chicago.
That was when I was working on the mural. So I'm sure I was like, yeah, I'll go.
No, it's fine.
Seeing things because I wasn't sleeping.
But why Colombia? So Colombia is they're at a precipice point that has never existed for the most part in South America proper. I'm not talking about the Caribbean or anything like that, because Cuba, as you know, has been medicinally ahead of us for a very long time. But they're just at this place where they're looking for outside help, and they're expanding rapidly on developing their infrastructure. That's why they brought me in the first place, is to develop their critical infrastructure with electrical and renewable energy and so forth. But outside of all of these other countries, I mean, I mean, there's so many in South America, and most of them have been kind of stuck in the past because they're all, no offense to any of them, but very corrupt places to be, which makes any sort of meaningful progress very, very difficult. but they don't have that those hangups anymore, or at least they don't for the next however long his term is going to last. I think it's another 2 years or so. So in between where his presidency began and where it ends, there's this window of opportunity where they're just like, you know what, bring in all ideas, very similarly to how China did, where at a period in time they didn't think that renewable energy worked. It was just a crock. And then all of a sudden scientists came in with irrefutable data and they're like, it's real, we need to do this. And so
let's build this enormous solar farm. Man.
So I mean, it's the same sort of it's almost like a renaissance, if you will, where they're having more meaningful discussions. They're bringing in subject matter experts. They're bringing in people who weren't products of cronyism to do a job, and that job is to bolster the collective progress of Colombia. So with all of that being said, I think what Terrence he's entering into this market at the perfect time because there's money available for it. There's very few regulatory issues and red tape that he would overcome, which is one of the reasons, as you know, why he wasn't able to do this in America. I mean, and he wouldn't face as many hurdles as he's been experiencing over the past decade or so.
Yeah. So I guess that takes us back to the Kardashev scale, because my thought on why so you said our technology is based on electrons and that's what's holding us back. I feel like a lot of what's holding us back is dealing with various privileged classes and ruling positions. And not to get too deep into politics, but
do me a favor real quick.
Yeah.
Can you kill the music? It's like it's so hard to think. And I mean, I'm not saying that it's bad. It's just like,
Steve, he said that about your music.
No. No, I just like I can't hear myself think, and the moment I can, it's like the music starts up again. It's like throwing me off what I want to say.
Gotcha. So we at least have the idea that we could be doing better than what we're doing now. We're stuck on this barely planetary level, according to the Kardashev scale.
Yep.
There are people who think we can control the weather. Maybe if we can, we do a bad job.
We can to an extent, by the way.
Yeah. They can make it rain in Dubai.
Yeah, cloud seeding. And,
yeah. If they could, keep the earth cool, that'd probably help all this stuff. Of the barriers to just not being able to finish the equation, I don't think we can rule out the dumbing down of populations by these hierarchies that put people in the power who are not the best people to be there. What are your thoughts on that, according to the Kardashev scale and the things that are holding us back?
Well, I mean, obviously the human element is going to be the defining factor of where we are versus where we want to be. And if you have people in office that are not qualified to be there, or they have some sort of political agenda that does not align with progressive thinking, which leads to progressive action, then it leads us to a place where we're stalemated, because you have people like me, like Terrence, and so on and so forth, who are working, who are implementers, but can't necessarily get the funding they need, can't get their regulatory permits, can't be recognized by their peers, and that stifles growth. So if we expect to become interstellar or interplanetary, and I'm saying to do this within, probably not within our lifetime, but at least within the next 2 to 3 generations or so, a lot of things have to move at lightning speed. And in order to move at lightning speed, you need people who are on the same page. But oftentimes, and that's why I hate I hate that money has become such a influencer, such a
Yeah.
motivator for stuff.
Yeah.
Because the moment money was introduced into the equation, people instantly were able to um, they were able to fuel their agendas. So that's where you get like super PACs and this kind of thing from. But in order for us to do what Terrence and I and many others want to do, you got to move away from money. I mean,
for sure.
Well, not move away from money, because money is important, but you have to move away from the negative influence of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The idea that we need this monetary value system to figure out what can be done.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also very difficult, because I mean, we would need something like 1% of Earth's resources in order to do this. But that also begs the question: are we going to move toward globalization? I don't want to move toward globalization.
Not at this point.
Yeah,
it's hard to do that without, and we're unfortunately seeing that in so many places. And this goes back again to the Kardashev scale. I've always said, I don't know if world peace is popular, because there will always be somebody who can enact violence on somebody else.
Yeah.
And as long as we have that lizard brain thinking, trying to get everybody under the same banner will always turn into war.
Yeah.
And as long as, we got war and storytelling in the same place in our brain and the same writings about history, we will slowly evolve backwards.
But that's why it is important that quantum computing and like a tertiary brain machine interface or something of that sort becomes more widespread, because there's a lot of nuances to conversation. I mean, let alone just understanding very complex topics, but when you throw in things like sarcasm and things of that nature, it further confounds the process. So the idea that you could become like a Trinity from the Matrix and learn quantum physics or something in a matter of seconds, like that needs to happen in some sort of level. And I'm saying like on a public level.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't happen, people are I mean, they're just going to constantly be stuck in this loop.
Yeah.
Where you get someone into power, and they don't quite understand this thing. People in their camp are feeding them bad information, or perhaps they just don't believe in it. Whatever, hence why we still have a lot of flat earthers.
Boy,
yeah,
the ice wall, you can see it.
But in order for us to, well, I guess I'm repeating myself now, but long story short, in order for us to get from where we are now to, for instance, getting to one of the Kepler exoplanets, we got to move fast.
Yeah.
Otherwise it would take thousands and thousands of years of going through this rigmarole in order to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I would actually, if we were the type of society that could work on something that would uplift us for thousands of years, I'd be all for it.
What would you consider that to be?
Utilizing the planet's resources to find other planets with other resources.
I mean, you wouldn't even have to necessarily go to other planets. I mean, there's asteroids floating around right now that, I mean, have trillions or quadrillions of dollars worth of like natural resources on them, like iron and nickel and stuff like that, lithium.
Well, if we could work towards catching an asteroid.
Well, did you ever see, what was that movie?
Oh no.
Don't look
Morgan
up.
Freeman?
Don't look up.
Oh dear God.
Yeah, that's
trying to catch an asteroid. Whoops, we didn't catch it. We got 7 hours.
Yeah.
And then it's over.
Yeah. But I mean, that is, it's an allegorical study of there being an abundance of natural resources in the universe, but being coerced by money.
Yeah.
And stupidity.
Yeah. With money comes stupidity.
And not listening to subject matter experts.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's out there. Yeah. There's plenty. There's enough resources on Earth, let alone the rest of the galaxy, let alone the rest of the universe to to provide enough sustenance for every man, woman, and child.
Yeah.
You know, eventually we will run out of space, and we could probably 10x the population. But regardless, I mean, we're still at this place where we're kind of just waiting around for something bad to happen, and we don't want that to occur.
Which I think is, and this is to take it to religious philosophy. Let me organize my files real quick. I feel like one of the main reasons we're just sitting around waiting for something bad to happen is because we are a Christian nation, and the Bible says, "Hey, man, something bad's gonna happen. This thing, it's gonna happen, and we just got to be ready for it by praying real hard and giving money to Joel Osteen, who, by the way, does not have a single cross on his stage. Pay attention to that."
Well, I mean, even on the global stage, like you'd have to think by now that someone would have already been out there. I mean, China, Japan, whomever, Russia. So I can't say that Team America World Police, like, sure, we have a lot of the collective brain trust, we have a lot of resources, but we don't have all of them.
No.
So it's like, well, what's stopping us from doing this? What's stopping someone from? When
you say doing this,
I mean, getting out of Earth, like it's like becoming colonizing the stars.
Yeah.
Like, what's stopping us from doing this at this point? Because not all of the quote unquote superpowers of the world are have the same philosophy. Sure, I mean, Christianity is not going anywhere. Islam and all these other religions, they're not going anywhere. But that has nothing to do with the preservation of mankind.
I think that there's no aim to preserve mankind. I think that the way that consent for that was manufactured amongst the public is by advertising that one day the apocalypse will happen, but don't worry, the good ones will go to this place and the bad ones will go to this place. I think that is a misinterpretation of a book that is about everybody. And it's the reason it's the Book of Eli. Let me find this book that was wasn't even written down in the beginning. These stories were just told orally with respect to the story. And once it got written down, then you had people that said, "Hey, I can use this to manipulate some folks so that I can get all their money." And I think that it's that, again, that monetary value system that has become the driving force behind too much. And that's one of the reasons why you have every nation and its oligarchs wanting different things.
Well, I mean, but you also still have smaller nations that are still very rich, like the Scandinavian countries, Denmark's and Norway's and so forth, and Finland's. What's stopping them? I mean, I'm not saying that they're not a God-fearing set of nations, but they don't necessarily, they're not in lockstep with what America has to say, or the biblical teachings of the Bible or whatever, or any of the religious tomes, so to speak. So I guess my real question is, like, why aren't we doing something with this as a people? Because I mean, like, if you look at the Hadron Collider, you know, that's an example, which is in Switzerland or something. I think
it's in Switzerland.
I think it's in Switzerland.
The Large Hadron Collider.
Yeah. So you do have people that are working to push the boundaries of science, and that clearly want something great to happen. But the question is, why aren't we investing more? Why aren't they rather investing more resources into getting off this rock and doing that? I mean, like, what comes to mind? We were just talking about these asteroids that are like floating around with an untold amount of wealth on them. Why isn't anyone pulling an Armageddon? You know, like from.
I'd rather they didn't. if we could do it without the whole.
Yeah, but like,
it might hit us thing.
Yeah, like I'm just saying, like, to like, there's nothing stopping us from mining these large celestial bodies for natural resources, but we're just not doing it.
What evidence have you seen in your travels and when you talk to people? What evidence have you seen as to why that's not happening? Is it just that everybody's on a different page? Is it that people don't have the same access to the same things? This nation has this thing we need and they don't like us.
You'd be surprised, but that particular conversation has just never come up with me. I mean, maybe I'm not talking in the right circles. Perhaps if I could talk to someone from CERN or one of these organizations or like the scientific community overall, I could receive a more definitive answer. But I mean, I don't have an answer right now because I mean, like when I do have these conversations, when I enter a room, they kind of address me as a subject matter expert in what I'm good at. So I'm not a physicist. I'm not an astronomer.
Interesting. Yeah. So they don't talk to you about like the international relations part of it.
No, I honestly, it has never come up.
Interesting. Also, the Large Hadron Collider is in Myron.
Oh, I was right. Okay, so it's in Switzerland.
Yeah, near France.
But I mean, there's just such a big world out there. So even if we're not physically exploring and mining and so forth, like robotics have gotten to a place where we could definitely do that. It's very feasible. And from what I understand, like one of these larger asteroids could easily hold enough wealth to make everyone on Earth like a billionaire, every single person.
Well, that's when we get into wealth hoarding, because that's no.
Yeah.
No, it would have to crash somewhere. People would have to grab it up real fast before the guns came in. Swiss cheese, army knife, says my good friend Jerome.
That's funny.
A wordsmith, that young man.
Yeah.
A great wordsmith, dude. I feel like when you say it holds wealth, even that is like, we would have to use that for something in fast. It's not money. We would have to use that gold for conductors. We would have to use that iron for something that's not making tanks.
Well, that's what I guess I'm getting at is in order for us to move the needle very quickly, you need more resources and you need more people making stuff. Because if there's not enough people making stuff, then I mean progress is going to stay throttled. Yeah.
Let me ask you this when we're talking about resources. You hear all the time that the Earth is heating up and our sources of water are not what we want them to be. Our one resource that brings us all together as freshwater drinkers is running low and is not being replenished. There aren't that many glaciers on dry land to produce enough water to sustain future generations. Have you heard any talk about plans in that regard?
Well, I mean, to clarify, there's a lot of drinkable water out there. It's just frozen. So
frozen and melting.
Yeah. So there was a huge ice shelf that broke off from Antarctica that was like the size of Rhode Island a few years ago. So I mean, you do the math there. Like that's enough water to sustain most of the world. But I mean, to be honest, like you know this as well as I do, that the next wars are going to be fought over water. And one of my thoughts behind that, and I'm sure other people have gotten to this place too, is like, how can we just make more water?
Yeah.
So my thought was just create a specific type of collider for hydrogen and oxygen molecules. And when they don't, when they don't blow up, then they would just create water from seemingly nothing. And I mean, once again, this isn't my area of expertise, but it seems like it has legs to at least explore. So, I mean, I'm in the school of thought where I want to do everything and anything that will avoid calamity.
For sure.
And if we know that this is on the horizon, if we know that these wars are going to be fought over lakes and potable water, as it's called, then let's do something about it. So I mean, if it means spending, you know, a portion of our country's wealth on creating something sustainable that can collide these molecules together, then why not?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm always stuck at the why not, because then you get into the reasons.
But that also is what confounds me, because there's plenty of private
Mm-hmm.
wealthy people out there that see the possibility of this. And even if it's not a money thing, I mean, because
Mm-hmm.
if you are making your own water, then clearly you're providing a service that no one else is.
For sure.
And if that's the case, then all you have to do is figure out how to bottle it and give it to people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, money.
Yeah, I was going to say that's always there's so many opportunities to give people what they need for free, and there's always somebody standing in the way.
Yeah.
That would mess up my business. You can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is.
But I mean, but the world is a small place, but it's a big place. So
mm-hmm.
if competition were one of the biggest bottlenecks, then just go someplace where there is no competition. Go to the middle of the Sahara Desert and just start making water. Problem solved.
True. But then who owns the Sahara Desert? You got to get permission from their military or they'll kill you.
No, there's parts of the Sahara that are not controlled by anyone. There's a place called Western Sahara, which is more than 1 million square miles that doesn't really belong to anyone.
Interesting.
I mean, I believe at one point Morocco they claimed dominance or not dominion rather over a portion of it. But I mean, if you can imagine having to travel that long of a distance to fight a battle, like it's a little bit difficult. So
true.
And furthermore, especially if it's for the betterment of people, or you could just build like a floating island nation out in the middle of nowhere in
which I've heard is a plan.
International waters.
Like a turtle.
What's that?
Have you seen the Turtle Island, the man-made island that somebody's working on somewhere?
I've seen. I mean, there's lots of islands that are man-made. Or where is it located?
Oh, that's an actual.
Yeah, that's what America used to be called. I thought that's what you were talking about for a second.
Hold on. Did I type in man-made? Where is it? It's only shaped like a turtle. The name doesn't have anything to do with it.
Is it in Dubai?
I think so.
Okay.
No, not in Dubai. It's the plan is to have this like man-made, motorized, moving, I believe.
Moving
island.
Well, like a Howl's Moving Island or something?
Yes. But it's shaped like a turtle. Google can't give me that part.
I don't see the purpose for shaping anything like a turtle, but all right.
Yeah, why not? For marketing. Man-made mobile island. Not for your kitchen. This is going to take me a while to find.
I get the point that you're trying to make, though.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's plenty of artificial islands. I guess the one that I was talking about is something more like what you would find at like an oil, what do you call it? Like an oil pumping station. So I mean, there actually is an abandoned one that was converted into an autonomous country called. I'm blinking on the name right now.
That sounds like some Final Fantasy shit. Right?
But it's real. It does exist. It's like it's off the coast of the UK, I believe. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, to just go where
there it is. Blue Estate. Continue. I'll keep looking at the stuff about this guy. The Blue Estate.
So I mean, sure, you're going to be regulated by whomever the governing body is, if you choose to do it on their sovereign territory. But if you go someplace that is uninhabited or in international waters, no one has any say so. And especially if you're not making nuclear weapons or anything, like this is not.
They'll say you are.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, that's true. So I mean, I guess like that's one of the biggest factors as well is people and their agendas and slander and trying to turn the general population against someone with propaganda.
That whole manufacturing of consent.
Yeah.
A luxury man-made island. Ooh. But that's not the turtle one.
Can your
Says
viewers
something.
see what you're looking at, or you're just going through it?
Pulling stuff. I can show it to Jerome,
Okay.
our viewer. Shout out to Kid Mental. Kid Mental will also make a theme song for you. He made our Blurred Dot Radio theme song. He made Nikki's theme song for her podcast.
Okay.
Good guy, that one. Again,
You forgot
great
I went to
musician.
Juilliard, right?
But are you going to make me a song?
Me?
Yes.
Am I gonna make you a song?
Yeah, like Kid Mental does.
You want me to make you a song?
Yes.
you want me to dust off my old hat, huh?
I actually just got a Machine Plus, which is a pad controller.
Mhm.
You know, comes with sounds you can sample from stuff.
Okay.
I've been making beats since I was 15.
Right.
Jerome actually has one of the first CDs of beats I've given to anybody.
I'd actually like to listen to that.
I gotta find it.
You know,
send it to me. The WMV files. That's how old they are.
Wow.
Yeah.
So funny story. I've I changed my algorithm on social media.
Nice.
So I guess I got to this place where, and I'm sure you've probably been a victim of this as well, where someone will like share a fight video, and then you click on it or something, and then
you
like
just get all the fight videos.
You get all the fight videos, and like you can feel your mood changing. So, you know, for a while, like I was getting all this negative content.
Yeah.
And then one day I clicked on a video. It was like an orchestral video. And so for the past like 3 weeks, all I've been seeing are like band and orchestral stuff and cat videos. And nice. I feel so happy.
For sure.
but I don't know if I told you this. Did you know I was a clarinet player? I am a clarinetist. So
that's what you went to Juilliard for?
Well, I started as a clarinetist, but then I shifted my major to film score composition.
Nice.
But last night, I didn't have much to do, so I pulled out my clarinet and I was just playing. And I haven't played, I haven't played in so long, and it just, I remember like these old feelings came flooding back to me when because I picked up like what was I playing, like I think it was like neo-romantic stuff. I can't Brahms. I was playing some Brahms stuff. Nice. I also played Gustav Holst and a few other composers, Mahler. And I just remembered this like euphoric feeling. And you don't play any musical instruments, do you?
No, I wish I could. Okay. Both of my parents, my mother went to school to be a concert pianist. My father actually had a record label for a while in Cleveland. Shout out to the Daz Band.
Okay.
No one taught me to play the piano.
So I don't know if this applies to pianists, but toward wind players, there's this feeling that you get when you complete a piece and you exhale. And like, I mean, it's almost spiritual. It probably is spiritual, like where this dissipation of energy that filled the room, or from an energy that once filled the room, now leaves it, and it gradually just, as I said, dissipates. There's like a flood of good chemicals in your brain that happens, like dopamine and so forth. And I'm like, man, I haven't felt this way in a long time.
Nice.
Yeah. So
very cool.
I was playing this piece from Gustav Holst called what is it called? A Song Without Words, which is it's either a clarinet solo or an oboe solo. So when I finished playing it, my daughter, she was sitting next to me. She was in the other room just doing whatever she was doing. She came over and she's just like staring at my face. And we just sighed at the same time, just like,
oh, nice.
And then, I mean, I'm like, man, I really miss this. I really miss playing with a band or an orchestra.
For sure.
And I mean, it's like one of those scenarios that occurs when you shift careers or you shift your focus and you just look up and you're far away from shore. And I'm like, man, I started off with a singular goal. My goal was to become a musician when I was younger, and eventually move to Brazil and just like build a skate shop or a surf shop and just like play music all day. And like none of that happened.
It's not too late.
No, it's not. I mean,
you're retired to that skate shop.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying this that it was a reluctant change. I'm
Mhm.
glad where I am now, but there's it. It was just like a flood of emotion. It was almost like like almost a catharsis that
For sure.
occurred from me assembling my clarinet again to
Mhm.
like wetting the reed and
Mhm.
just doing warm up scales and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Toward the last note that I played, where we just sat and just breathed a sigh, and
I think
that
that
was it.
we all need that sort of creative outlet.
Yeah.
I have a statement to share, and then I have a question for you. The statement is that feeling after finishing playing a composition,
hmm
I read about in Hannibal. If you read the books by
Hannibal
Thomas
Barca.
Harris, Hannibal the Cannibal,
Okay.
the Thomas Harris books, Hannibal is actually a very artistic person who just so happens to eat people.
hmm
But they talk about he's really obsessed with the Italian Renaissance period,
hmm
doing sketches in Italian Renaissance style, playing the composition on the harpsichord, and he's like drinking Italian wine. And they talk about that like feeling after he's finished playing his composition on the harpsichord.
hmm
I've read all of the Thomas Harris Hannibal books. I recommend them to anybody. My question: how do you feel about Andre 3000, who's doing what you just described in front of audiences? Did you listen to the
new album?
Yeah,
I listened to pieces of it. To be honest, I couldn't sit through it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I imagine as like a trained musician,
Yeah.
listening to an untrained musician might be difficult.
Well, I would disagree. I mean, what's his name? Charlie Parker never went to school, did he?
But Charlie Parker, Andre 3000 is not Charlie Parker. let's not mix oil and water here.
Fair enough.
They're not the same person.
Well, I mean, I understand what he was trying to do. Like, this is just it's a stream of creativity and just bottled up emotion. And I mean, you could even tell that from the long ass names of the titles.
Clearly written by a rapper.
Yeah. I respect what he's doing. Like I can't disparage him. And this by the way, this is just going back to Terrence. This was a conversation that we had when we first met. This whole philosophy that heterodox people can't get into a new field because of these barriers to entry from the rest of their peers, I think is baloney. So I mean that applies across all verticals. So it's not just like in the scientific community, but the musical community as well. Like, if that were the case, there would never be any other genre of music aside from like madrigal or
for sure
or Gregorian chant or something. So
I'm sure there are a lot of people that would rather we just listen to Gregorian chant and like old Southern gospel music.
Yeah, or sea chanties or something.
Yeah.
But no, I say that because I've always been an admirer of Andre. I met him, by the way. Yeah. He signed my skateboard when
nice.
They came to. You remember Coops Records?
No, is that here?
Oh, you probably weren't in Chicago then. When did you come to Chicago?
2010.
Okay, so I think Coops had just shut down. But anyway, it was like the big record store for a while. I lived in Hyde Park, so he came and I met him when Stankonia came out.
Nice.
Yeah, so he's been a guiding force for me in terms of like individuality and not falling into the confines of what people want you to be. And
for sure.
So yeah, I mean that's dope. Like, keep playing your bamboo flute.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I'll tell you this: my main reason for appreciating Andre 3000 as a flautist is if he keeps doing this, maybe he'll rap again. If he failed, if this album got panned, we'd never hear from Andre 3000 again. So I told people like the New Blue Sun. If like people were like, "This is shit," then that'd be it.
Well, I mean, it had mixed reviews. A lot of people did say they did echo that sentiment, but
it's still when whatever Spotify Platinum is, they got a whole lot of streams on its first day.
Sure. Well, I mean, it was something that hadn't been done by any mainstream artist ever. So I mean, it would be like if I don't know, Kanye decided he was going to make a mandolin album or something, like, of course people are going to listen to that.
Oh,
Like,
man,
what does he have to say?
Yeah. I haven't listened to a Kanye song in years, but if he made something without words,
Yeah.
I'm all over it.
Yeah.
Let me hear what that is.
Yeah. So I mean, I love that Andre has he's become this pivotal character, and then he's like, you know what? I've made my money. I've said what I have to say from a rap standpoint. Now I want you to hear what I really want to say, and what I really want to say doesn't involve words. It doesn't involve any sort of lyricism, and it doesn't fit into any actual genre. It's just going to be, this is just what I want to do. So it's going to be a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll. No,
so the soul. Big letters on big and bold. The old dirty bastard across the globe. I had to finish that lyric. Rest in peace, ODB.
Rest in peace. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate artists who foray into anything else. Because I think that's what the arts are supposed to do. You're not supposed, business will pigeonhole you. We're not supposed to bring it back to Terrence Howard. We're not supposed to just do this one thing and that's where we're stuck forever, because that's where our marketers feel comfortable for us.
Right.
One of the things that I hate in the art world, and this is as somebody who makes art and music, is the business of it, and especially the marketing. I'm not a marketer. And I hate that the expectation now that social media is such a big deal is that I need to be both a talented artist and a marketer. And if I'm not a good marketer, then I'm not a talented artist.
Well, I think that there's also a line in the sand, because you don't necessarily have to be a good marketer if you just want to make art. You just won't have the same volume of people that see your art.
Well, that and art, unfortunately, is more competitive than people give it credit for. Like when I used to talk about postmodern art or performance art, and people would say things like, oh, well, it's not like you're competing. Yes, you are, because there's grants for this. Unless you're selling your art on the street out of the trunk of your car successfully, you have to find funding somewhere.
And you're saying you're saying this in the vein of like making a living at it, right? Not just doing art for art's sake.
Doing art for art's sake, you got to buy materials. You can dig in the trash and pull out some materials. You're not going to make anything that lasts very long.
Well, I guess I was being a little too broad when I when I said art, because sure, I mean there's what you just referred to, like, you know, painting and so forth, but you know, performative art, and you know, so on and so forth. Like I guess from a musical standpoint, like if you want to just make music, like there's plenty of mediums that will allow you to do that for free.
For sure.
And if people like your stuff, then they'll just pay for it. But yeah, things are a lot more difficult if you by the way, what is the proper terminology for someone who paints paints or draws or whatever, like
painter?
But I'm saying like there's like performative art, which could be like dance or whatever.
Visual art.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Also, just for anybody, if you draw well, you are a draftsman. You're not a drawer. That's the popular nomenclature is, oh yeah, man, I was a great drawer when I was in high school. It's like a drawer is the thing that you use to keep your pants up before there were belts. A drawer is the thing you pull out that holds your drawers. You're a draftsman. I just want people to know that. So
okay, that's actually really interesting to me. So when I think of draftsman, I've always thought of like architecture, which was more formalized. It was more structured rather. So that term would still apply to someone who's like a Monet, or
I assume so. Let's see if I'm wrong.
The English language is so stupid.
It's difficult.
There's just so many nuances.
Well, you know, good old prestige languages.
You know, I had a conversation while you're looking it up with my daughter. I believe this was this past summer. We were in Morocco. I don't know if I told you about that. But while we were there, she asked me something. She said, because, you know, in our household, we speak a few languages. So she's like, Dad, will English still exist in 2,000 years, and I said,
Hmm.
or no, she didn't say that. She said, "Will we still speak English in Chicago in 2,000 years?" And I
Tough.
said, "Probably not."
Yeah. Yeah. If we do, then not enough has changed.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, it's just like we were just talking about the development of brain machine interfaces and how that tertiary cognitive layer would change how communication happens. And if that's the case, then we would not communicate in English mentally anymore, and that could happen within probably their lifetime, within the next 100 years or so.
How do you think we'd record knowledge in that time?
You mean
what would books become if we could just transmit thoughts to each other?
Oh man, I'm glad you brought that up. I've been working on something really cool. Okay, so one of our biggest follies was making all of our data electronically based.
Real quick, speaking of electronic data, someone who draws is called an artist according to Google's AI.
All right.
we've got a ways to go with this. AI we're glad to have it. It is a great technology. It's pulling from us. We're an inherently flawed thing. So once it evolves a little bit, it'll tell us what you call someone who draws. You were saying, I'm sorry.
I lost my train of thought. What was I getting at?
Your invention. I asked
Okay. So yeah, one of the biggest follies that we have, that we keep propagating is making all of our data electronically based. So if there ever were a massive solar flare or an EMP strike, or
we're done.
Yeah, we're going back to the drawing board for sure. So I've had this thought where, and I don't know even if I should talk about it, but I guess I will anyway, because even if I don't do it, it needs to be done. We need to transition over soon. So, where do I even start with this? I have this thought that you can write data on molecules.
Yeah, you can write data on DNA.
Well, it would go deeper than that. Like DNA was the OG of I mean that was the predecessor to what we're doing now. Yeah, we are. We're all slaves to our DNA, and I have this idea that you would be able to electrically, or some new form of way of transmission, to write infinite amounts of data on individual molecules, and then be able to pull on those molecules from anywhere in the universe. So, I mean,
I'm thinking about the structure of a molecule.
Well, we talked about string theory, right?
Yeah.
We may have mentioned that once or twice before.
Spooky physics and
yeah. So like, basically, one molecule can be here and then be transmuted anywhere else in the galaxy instantaneously. So that needs to happen in order for us to have an expansive data set and knowledge base, and for it to be near indestructible. Because if it doesn't happen, I mean, whatever server farms that we have going right now and data centers, like, they're eventually going to, be retired. And if any cataclysmic event happens, we're really going back to the Stone Age. And I don't think people even realize, like, how precarious our situation is.
For sure.
So something like that needs to happen, where you're using more natural elements than something man-made, if that makes sense. And that's what I've been working on in my spare time.
Nice. Very cool. Let me ask you this in a similar vein. Do you still have your CDs, vinyl tapes?
I do. Yeah.
I say it a lot on Blur.radio.
Yeah. I mean, I don't use them, but that's actually a good point.
We need physical media.
We need physical media for sure.
All your music can be gone tomorrow because somebody behind the desk decided, they didn't pay their license fees this month. No more Outkast.
Well, I mean, even if you look at what these douchebags are doing at like esports and or
Mhm.
EA Sports rather, um, where they're trying to say that just because you buy something doesn't mean you own it.
It's fucking
Bullshit.
crazy. That's crazy.
That's bullshit. No, if I paid for it, if I
Mhm.
own this physical copy, it is mine forever to do
Yeah.
whatever I want with
I'm not
within
buying a
reason.
subscription.
Yeah,
Yeah.
within legal reason. And if you're trying to take that away,
Mhm.
then eventually all of you know, I'm a big Silent Hill fan, right?
Mhm.
So there's a reason why the games now, like Silent Hill 1 and 2, cost so much money. It's because you can't find the physical copies anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But if this happens with music and
Mhm.
audiobooks and all of
Which it
these
already
other,
has. There's a lot of
yeah.
music that does not exist
Mhm.
physically outside of a master recording that I assume is still a thing.
Yeah.
They still print up masters? Is that?
Mhm.
I hope so.
Well,
I
actually,
seriously
you know,
hope so.
and I'm not sure if you know this, but there's been a push to bring back CDs
Mhm.
that would have a much larger capacity, and I think it would be like terabytes or even
Mhm.
petabytes worth of data on them.
Interesting.
Hmm.
It would be necessary for sure. One, just for the reason why Universal Music Group has made so much money is because of the streaming contracts that artists sign, where you could sell 1 million streams and you don't get $1 million.
Hmm.
A lot of that was based around physical media. You sell this many CDs, you
Hmm.
have a thing
Hmm.
that you can mark and say, all right, I sold this many CDs in Japan. I should be getting this much of that.
Hmm.
Not just numbers come up with through an algorithm that you don't understand. It's an artist where they could just lie to you
Yeah.
and say, oh, you didn't make that much.
Hmm.
But instead, we made this much money.
Well, I mean that goes back to the exploitation of the artist, right?
Absolutely.
From all of these people who are not necessarily that smart, but
Mhm.
are smart enough that they've been able to pull together money and exploit artists with.
Those people are called lawyers. The court even ruled the game preservation is illegal. And there's a group that does archives and was told to stop. My God.
Yeah, that's scary.
Also, that's my best friend, Darren. You know why I know Kid Mental? Because of Darren. So it's funny that these two are in the chat right now.
Mhm.
Shout out to both of y'all. Yeah, this if we're going to move to a more invisible economy, and we already are moving there.
What do you mean invisible? Do you mean digital?
Digital, like
I mean,
you
we're there
can't
already.
hold the thing.
You mean intangible?
Yeah.
Mhm.
The people who are able to manipulate these intangible, that's my word, economies, it's going to be hard to unseat them, because where's your power come from in the first place?
Yeah, but I mean, there's also a changing of the guard that's currently happening. So a lot of the people, you know, the David Geffens of the world or whatever, they're in their 70s, 80s now,
Yeah.
or something like that. So
Yeah.
there is the opportunity for, if not total, then at least some sort of a partition to happen where you have decision makers that recognize the importance of digital hard copies.
Yeah.
And then we also get that, you know, the Spotify's of the world, they still need to make money, and everyone can
I
make
don't know
money.
if they need to make money.
Well, I mean, it's a business, so
Yeah.
you know,
They'll need to make my money.
yeah. But I mean, that's the sole purpose of any business. And I guess I'm kind of saying this as a capitalist, but I get it because I'm also, I'm a musician and composer and, you know, so on and so forth. But I think that there's not enough there's not enough smart people that can look at an inherent flaw in a system and say this is what needs to happen, and then make that happen, and then share the results with the world, and the world say, okay, I see what you're saying, let's move toward this new dynamic.
Yeah.
I mean, I found that quite often in my space in renewable energy, where you have people that have no idea what they're talking about, and they're just like, that won't work. And just to give you an example, right? I'm not sure if we've gotten into the conversation of this new decarbonization campaign that I'm running in Illinois.
We may have talked about it on Facebook once or twice.
Okay.
But
so long story short, and I think even on the last podcast, you asked me a question. I don't remember exactly, and I don't want to butcher what your question was, but it was something like, what's the biggest hurdles that you face?
Mm-hmm.
And I said that it's these organizations like these nonprofits that are getting all this money. So I'm like, well, they're getting this money and they're doing nothing with it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I just got, and I'm not going to say any names, but I got an email from one of these organizations that got like a boatload of money
Mm-hmm.
to invite me to a fish fry, and I'm just like, what the hell does this have to do with anything? So um, I'm like, well, I'll just create my own campaign that is able to leverage outside money as well as grant dollars and so forth to decarbonize the state and to decrease greenhouse gas emissions on my own. So, I mean, I've gotten quite a few organizations signed up. We actually just signed a deal for to become the proprietors and the go-to organization for renewable energy systems in Maywood. So I
Nice.
can make that announcement publicly.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Who's the mayor of Maywood right now?
Nathaniel Booker. Shout out Nathaniel Booker.
Okay, I knew a guy that was running for the mayor of Maywood. I guess he's not the current mayor.
No,
I forgot his name.
Nathaniel's awesome. But my point is, as I was going through this iterative.
Also, congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
As I was going through this iterative process of like, how would this entire complex system work, and how would money be generated, how would these things be financed, what would be allocated where, I came up with something that I thought made a whole lot of sense, and it did to the right people.
Okay.
But I put this in front of some, and they're just like looking at this. And I have, whenever I do something, it's very thorough. So I've published white papers, a full business plan, so on and so forth about the technology and the overall framework of how this would work. And they're just looking at me with these confused faces, and I'm like, why don't you understand this?
Yeah. I've broken it down as far as I can.
Like clearly, what's happening right now, what we are. And by the way, Illinois, if you don't know this already, is on the front line. We're the front runners for progress in renewable energy.
Nice.
So anything that we do is something that will be mimicked by other nations and other states. Yeah. So I put together this framework of something called a DAO. Does that ring a bell to you? Decentralized Autonomous Organization.
No. Would I be able to look up the?
Of course, yeah. DAO, DAO. But long story short, a DAO is basically a decentralized construct for e-governance.
Okay.
So, like, if for instance, I don't know, we started like a charity to save the whales. I'm just throwing stuff together. You would be able to automate, for instance, like how we get paid, like how things are doled out. There's like a voting process with time limitations on it, which is really, really important.
Okay.
So if we were to decide on a proposal, we would have like 72 hours to vote, as opposed to it taking months and months and
filibustering.
Yeah. But all of that is controlled by what's called a smart contract.
Okay.
So, and by the way, DAOs are worth trillions of dollars by now. Like they're very popular, and there's a ton of money that have been pumped into these things.
I don't think people understand that.
They don't. That's my whole point.
Just real quick, I just like saying this. If you make $1 every second, it would take you 31,000 years to make $1 trillion. So that's literally a ton of money. Yeah.
So, I used the DAO as sort of a fulcrum point, so to speak, because it would be impossible for us as an organization to do this from municipality to municipality. But if we had a parent DAO, and then we had substructures, we had like sub DAOs per municipality, and I believe there's something like 1,500 in Illinois. They would be able to, for instance, vote on like, there's this empty vacant plot of land that's been sitting there for, not being used for a long time. Let's buy it. Let's put a ground mounted solar array on it and then connect it to the grid and make money. you would be able to do that in a relatively short amount of time, way faster than anything that's even remotely comparable.
Okay.
So think about it this way.
Yeah.
Think about it this way, right? Just in point in case with Maywood, what we're setting up is something called a green plan. Green plan is a projection of where they are now, what their sustainability goals are, and the maturation period, which is 10 years.
Okay.
So if you know that there's going to be a population boom, if you know that you don't have any electric vehicle charging stations, there's not enough power to go around, which will create blackouts and brownouts, then these are the things that you need to address in the green plan.
Yeah.
Fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay, so once that is outlined, you create the DAO. The smart contract will have all of that in digital writing, which is completely auditable. It's on the blockchain. Okay. And for shareholders that are either like homeowners or like ComEd or whomever, or whatever the local power company is, up to decision makers within that municipality, they all work together.
Okay.
They all have some sort of voting stake, and it depends on how much money or influence or whatever that they put into it. But basically, it becomes like democratized. Okay.
Okay.
So with all that being said, if they said, you know, we need to, based upon our green plan, put 2 megawatts back into the grid to feed our houses and to sell some of that energy that's unused back, you would vote, okay, well, this huge plot of land, it's like, you know, 5 or 6 acres or whatever sitting there, let's purchase it. They all vote, which is based on that timed voting mechanism that I explained. Then the money is automatically allocated. Then the resources are allocated, and then the people that we train with my school are put to work.
Okay.
Fairly simple, right? You get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. They had no idea what the hell I was talking about.
I'm putting it together.
I'm not saying like we're not selling cookies. This is a utility company doing utility company things. I get that.
I do remember you talking about this.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
So the current structure for getting anything done on a municipal basis takes a very long time because there's just all of these unnecessary forms and town hall debates and this and that. But if everything is outlined and you have it right in front of your face to read over it, to have it summarized by AI if necessary, then that gets you up to speed really fast.
Yeah.
And what's more is if you don't have to, if you don't need a cajillion people that need to vote on it to create what's called a quorum, things can mesh well and then be put into action. Otherwise, it would take a lifetime for anything real to happen. And you mentioned earlier that that the ice caps are melting and things of that nature. Like this all plays a vital role in everything that I'm talking about. So what I've done is supercharged the e-governance process.
But you get resistance to that. Is that just because people don't understand?
They just don't understand.
Is it the technology itself that you feel like they're hesitant about? Is it the foregoing of the control that they have in municipal courts?
Oh, there's still control. Like don't get me wrong. Like it's not relinquishing any of that.
But do they know that? Is it?
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's something that?
Well, I mean, I've had this conversation quite often with different types of stakeholders, investors, political or politicians, rather, homeowners, and so forth. That every conversation needs to be tailored differently to to be able to be well articulated and well received.
Yeah.
But long story short, some of these conversations that I've had with people that want to put money into this program, they're just like scratching their heads. And I'm like, well, if you can understand how complex financial instruments work, why doesn't this make sense?
Yeah. If you can understand bank regulations, why is this crazy?
Yeah. Or legalese or whatever. So, yeah, people are always going to be afraid of new technology, but
hesitant to change.
Yeah. But if it's something that can move the needle dramatically, and I'm saying like I gave a 10-year time span. Like we could probably do this in half the time if we just get the right organizations on board.
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not hurting anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're not breaking any laws.
Yeah.
I have architected a more succinct system. That's all.
Yeah.
And there's also something called a green bond that we are going to introduce.
Mm-hmm.
And a green bond is basically a financial instrument where the proceeds are earmarked specifically for green energy projects.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, with that, like even with and just to give you an example, like if we introduced a certified green bond into the market, the cap could be easily $300 million, like per green bond.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, there's more than 1,500 municipalities, so there's a potential of more than of bringing in more than $400 billion to Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
It's unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying specifically from green energy projects. It's unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How much contact have you had with the governor's office that you can talk about?
I can't really say what I want to say, but enough. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're mostly on board.
Yeah.
I know that it took the right municipalities to take that leap first, and that's why I'm very grateful for Mayor Booker for doing that, because he believed in me. We've been having this conversation for I think a couple of years already, as I was going through the developmental process, and he's just like, "Yep, we're on board."
How'd you meet Mayor Booker?
Through one of our workforce development partners. And by the way, we actually just graduated a new cohort of solar panel installers. We graduated 9 this 2 weeks ago.
Very dope.
Yeah.
How many people do you graduate a year? Not to sidetrack you from the question I just asked.
Well, I mean, we got hammered during the pandemic. So now that we're back on track, it varies, but somewhere around 20 per cohort.
Okay.
But I mean, to put into perspective, in order for this larger statewide program to really work, we need around 10,000 new renewable energy workers. So that's like a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
But I mean, keep in mind, like this is across the entire state. So it's not just for Chicago, which I mean, there's I don't know the population of Illinois, but it's at least
a lot of it in Chicago.
Yeah.
A lot of it's only they keep making these high rises. It's going to go up by at least a few million people in the next couple of years. Yeah.
But I mean, also like the surrounding Chicagoland area and so forth.
9.26 million.
Okay.
2023.
All right. But what about Illinois? How much is it? How much is there?
Illinois.
Okay, so 12.5 million people. Yeah. So 10,000 is very realistic. But yeah, I got all sorts of hesitations and trepidations. Like, yeah, I don't know if this is gonna work. Like, there's there's not enough. And like, well, I mean, if you look at the people, I'm bringing jobs to Illinois in a scale that's never been done before. So I mean, if you do the math on this, like, I am right. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I guess the focal point of this conversation seems to just be around people understanding vast amounts of information and being able to actualize it.
Yeah.
And this is definitely one of those, because I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like it's a dense subject matter, but I mean, this is what I do every day.
For sure.
Like I'm not going to put my reputation on the line for something that has a low probability of success rate.
Yeah. Which I feel like a lot of people, I say it a lot. Bureaucracy seems to have been made to stall progress.
Yeah.
For very few other reasons. Stalling progress is big business in America. It's what lobbyists are for.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Probably what senators and congressmen are for. To make sure certain things don't advance.
Speaking of, did you see the latest announcement?
Just a real quick 10-minute warning.
On what?
We got 9 minutes, and then I got to.
Oh, you're gonna get ready for the next thing?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that was fast.
Yeah, it always is. It's funny. I'm gonna make a smash cut of you saying, "Oh, no, we don't need 3 hours. We won't talk for the whole 3 hours." Wait, it's been 3 hours. We're going there.
Yeah, so we just partnered with this manufacturing company. So we will officially have the first Lumina Energy battery storage products coming out. Yeah, I brought the first portable power station. Did you see on Facebook where I was
You were
like
making hot dogs with?
I was, yeah, you did see it.
I did.
Yeah. So it's important that I field test the equipment just to make sure it works and so forth. And I mean, people were coming up and like I was literally e-cooking, which I mean, who does that, you know? So now we got these collapsible solar panels that like fit into a small bag. They're like that thin, like
Nice.
yeah, like a couple millimeters,
Okay.
but like super durable.
Nice.
But when you were speaking about the bureaucratic process, some of the customers that we've been courting don't live in America. So like, you know, parts of Western Africa where they have rolling blackouts and load shedding and stuff like that. This product has a lot of application.
Nice.
But it's difficult to import these things because these are large lithium ion batteries.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you know, you guys need to sort your stuff out because why would you have your own people living in the situation that is 100% controllable?
Yeah.
It's fixable.
Yeah. Well, we are a broken system built on stolen land.
Well, I'm saying in Africa, you know, like sure, America has its problems, but if there is a technology out there that works and is affordable, then you would be a fool not to bring it to your people.
Sure.
Unless you're just looking to make, you know, your own to benefit off of it from either monetarily or some other way. Yeah.
Or to benefit from poverty. That's unfortunately a big business across the world.
Oh, I guess before we leave, we've been talking about Project Candor for a long time, and Project Candor is about to break ground.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're breaking ground in Fort Heights.
Nice.
I believe in the next quarter.
Okay.
I want you to be there.
For sure.
The first projects that we are going to put up are 50 container homes.
Okay.
And the Living Tower. You remember the Living Tower?
Yes.
The vertical farming facility? Yeah, bro.
Nice.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
Did Adam help you with that?
No.
I know he's working on a lot of tall garden structures.
No, actually I need to reach out to him though because we want to do some wireless mesh networking stuff.
Nice. He just bought a building.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that. He's doing some amazing things.
For sure. Good old APB. The guy I used to drink with.
What is APP?
Alan Phillip. I don't know what name he goes by now. But his birth name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was like All Points Bulletin.
We got an APB up on the drunk black man at a house party.
Yeah.
But yeah, shout out to that guy. And shout out to you. Shout out to you for your current success, your past successes, and your future successes. Thank you for coming and blessing this channel. We don't get the most viewers, but where else are you going to find somebody to sit down with this guy? I remember I had David Jones on Blurred Out once, and I don't remember the name of the other guest, but he was like, "Why'd you put us on with him? We don't do anything." It's pretty funny.
Well, no, I mean, people are going to eventually listen to these, so it's not about the viewership now, but it's important to have a platform where we can talk about these things and have an open dialogue. So
for sure,
you know, I'm grateful for you as well. Like you keep doing the stuff that you're doing.
For sure.
I mean, we don't talk as much as we should because you and your flip phone, and I mean, I guess
we talk every day on this flip phone.
Seriously,
I'm just.
I always wondered that. Like,
not a whole lot of limits to this thing.
Wait, so you have Messenger on there?
Well, you got to text me.
That's so I'm like, if you have a flip phone, how do you use Messenger? Which is like a laptop or something?
On my computer. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep my stuff separated.
Yeah.
Very Luddite-ish in that way.
Oh, it's good to be a Luddite sometimes.
Yeah.
But I mean, what I'm getting at though is like, you know, you provide this outlet, so I can just I can talk and I can share stuff. And I mean,
sure.
I do podcasts quite often. I just did one actually the other day. But
shout out to them.
But like you are the only friend that I know who offers like a long form conversation, like no holds barred. Like we can talk about whatever we want for nearly as long as we want. I'm slightly salty that I've only been talking for an hour and 40 minutes.
You'll have to come back though.
Yes.
We'll have to do. I gotta change the name of this. The next one will be part 3. The first one was the alpha interview. Now we're into the Street Fighter.
Hadouken!
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, David Jones, for your time. Yeah. We'll around March, we'll have to come back here and do this again.
I think that actually makes a lot of sense. I got some pretty cool stuff that's going to be popping off around that time. So
for sure.
Yeah. And also you can update your listeners when you come to the groundbreaking ceremony and
of course.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
Just give me a date. I'll be there.
For sure.
Yeah.
And also the Terrence Howard event. Yeah.
I will be there. So this has been An Artist and a Technologist Walk into a Studio Part 2. Stay tuned for Part 3. Until then, love, peace, hair grease. Go read a book. Like right now.